Ryan, I think so far Kelvin Banks has been trending towards being my number one tackle in this class. Now, it's an offensive tackle class that is not very strong, but to see a player as strong as him that also had improvements in his technique when that was a significant issue in the offseason, I've been juiced up watching the Texas offensive tackle. What are your just general thoughts on him and where you think he's going to get selected?
I think that because I remember in the preseason, he was my offensive tackle one, and I think he's just kind of cemented that this year for me, Joe. I mean, he is a guy that I think just has, generally speaking, all the boxes that he could potentially check. There's another guy that's going to be debated on whether he's a guard or a tackle. I think he's a tackle, at least initially on the next level, because I think he just has a baseline athleticism, baseline length, baseline power to stick on the offense on the outside. And I really think that he has kind of cemented himself as potentially the first offensive lineman off the board in April.
If we're talking strengths here for Kelvin Banks, hand usage was one thing that I was very pleasantly surprised by the improvement there, because there are a bunch of times on reps where, he's understanding how to ride guys' hips. He's understanding like where he's got to keep his hands inside in order to be able to secure and win reps. That was something that I wanted to see a technical improvement and change from him coming into the year, because we know he's got the traits. We know that he is, and can be, not consistently, we're going to talk weaknesses on this in a second, but is light-footed and mobile for his size. He has pretty good flexibility, and the power is fantastic. Are you in agreement with me there on those strengths for Kelvin Banks?
Well, it's funny when you started talking about strengths, I was like, the biggest strength is the strength, right? Like, he is an incredibly dense and powerful dude. I mean, he really is. At 6'4", 320 pounds right around, with near 34-inch arms. He's a really strong, and he both from a lower body and upper body strength perspective, he can move gaps, he can displace defenders. He has that general just power profile that brings to the table. But then I really do think that there has been a technical improvement in pass protection more than anything, Joe, because again, he has the baseline foot quickness, flexibility, and length to be able to stick at offensive tackle. But I also think that it was just a question of, can the technical side move up to the athletic traits? And I think that it's gotten a lot better. So while I don't necessarily know if he'll ever be a stalwart pass protector, I do think that his improvements have done such that he can last on the outside. And I think that we're talking about almost a day one starter potentially with his power profile and general athleticism.
Now, there are certainly improvements that need to be had with Kelvin Banks, and a lot of it just comes with him continuing to improve his technique. It felt like the upper body took the step forward, but the lower body, not so much. What did you notice here for weaknesses? Because you and I were corresponding about this a little bit, and it sounds like you and I are on the same page.
Yeah, I don't think it's a foot quickness issue with Kelvin Banks. Like, I've seen him be able to redirect in space. I've seen him move to the second level. Like, I think generally speaking, he has the foot quickness to be able to mirror in pass protection. I just think his lower body's lazy a lot. Yeah. Like, that's the best way to put it, is that there's just some reps, Joe, where I'm just like, he knows that he has enough recovery speed to be able to let a guy just work up outside track and then just latch on last minute and ride him past the quarterback. But we know in the NFL level, it doesn't work quite as easily as that. Like, you need to get yourself in proper positioning, because we're talking about more bendy, explosive pass rushers that once they threaten the outside shoulder, they can hit inside counters. They can work double moves. And this is a young man that I think just needs to be a little bit more aggressive to his set points, because he's pretty aggressive in the run game. Like, he's obviously very physical in the run game, but pass protection, I just think he needs to be a little bit more urgent in pass protection, get to his set points, and just not be quite as lackadaisical with his lower body, because he has the foot quickness to do it. I just think that he's just been more athletically gifted than most players throughout the course of his career, so he hasn't had to really refine the just foot placements conversation. But if he does that, I do think he has the requisite athleticism. I just think that he needs to be a little bit less lazy with his lower body.
Considering the improvement that he's had with his upper body and the way that he's using his hands and delivering punches, I feel pretty good about there being improvements with his feet. It's not like it's an unfixable trait. And you mentioned here where you see on film, he moves really well in space. He is able to get upfield in a hurry. He is able to show and flash that ability to consistently and easily mirror. But what we see in the run game is instead he's trying to just win by being big and strong and shoving the hell out of people. And then in pass protection, he gets in that initial set, and then he's not really moving, one, quickly enough, and then two, he's not playing with effective enough footwork. He's not playing with his feet consistently enough that he's like really sitting in his stance, mirroring, keeping a nice wide base. His anchor certainly needs improvement. I'm 100% on there with you. And I think that if there's a boost there, if he ends up on, most offensive line coaches in the NFL are going to be able to help him fix this. But if he ends up on a good team that's got an already established offensive line, maybe he's the last missing piece for whatever team that might be. Maybe it's a team like the Titans who already have a pretty good offensive line, but you plug him in and he's playing amongst a pretty stellar mauling group, that footwork issue would improve gradually over his rookie season.
What I would say this too is that when we're talking about projecting prospects, we always want to isolate what is a teachable trait and what's an unteachable. He has the unteachable stuff, the athleticism, the length, the body type. Everything that we're talking about of improvements is the technical side, which can be fixed with good coaching and just good maturation, because we're talking about a kid that is only 20 years old, right? So he is going to continue to mature. He's going to continue to get more technically refined. I think he has upside as a good starter as an offensive tackle, but I think he might have Pro Bowl opportunities on the inside potentially as well. So whether you view him as an offensive tackle or an offensive guard, I think we're talking about a plus starter on the NFL level.
Folks, let us know in the comments, where do you want to see Kelvin Banks play? How high do you think he should be drafted? And also hit that like button and subscribe as well. We'll talk to you folks later.